This is Pastor's Perspective. We're here every Monday through Friday providing answers on a variety of topics, including the Bible, end times, other religions, and the family. Call right now with your question at 1-888-564-6173. That's 888-564-6173. You can also post your question at facebook.com/Pastor's Perspective. And now here again is your host, Brian Perez.
Hello, thanks so much for listening and for watching the Pastor's Perspective program. It's a marathon Pastor's Perspective today. It's Thursday, so we're here from 3 till 4 p.m. live on the radio, and then we'll take a short break and record Monday's program from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time. We'll keep the phone lines open, 888-564-6173. And then later tonight, starting at 7 o'clock Pacific time, Pastor Brian Broderson, Dr. Bobby Conway, and I will be at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa for an open forum happening at Pastor John Huang's Open Bible Study. It's open to the 18 to 30 age group, although tonight John says that high schoolers are welcome to attend. It's going to be a lot of fun. We did this back in November and just had a good crowd of kids there. I say kids, or, young adults, 18 to 30. They're kids. And just great questions that they had. And
in my book, they're kids, for sure. Yes.
Grandkids, maybe. No, I'm joking. But it's going to be fun.
It is going to be.
Yep. So we look forward to seeing you there. Starts at 7 o'clock, Calvary, Costa Mesa. Open.cccm.com is the website. So what's up, guys?
Not much. I'm looking forward to doing the Q&A tonight with you, Brian. I'm going to have them ask you all the hard questions.
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
Well, I'm going to throw them right back at you. So it's fine with me, So they, Brian, you saw that list of questions just in case people don't ask questions, so we can sort of get some things going with. And I'm reading through those like, okay, Bobby's got that one. Bobby's got that one. Bobby's got that one. Bobby's got that one. Okay,
Yeah,
maybe
right.
I could do that one.
Well, you know what's funny, though, about Pastor Brian? He's so self-effacing, and it's like, got that one. It's like you could throw Brian any question, and he would be ready for it. And so, but his humor is, you make a good laugh. It's fun.
He only throws the questions back to you when he feels like he's had the stage for too long. That's when he goes, you know what? No.
Yeah, I think I think I'm still kind of in a grooming season, being on Pastor's Perspective with him. So he tests me sometimes and just throws it my way.
Yeah.
And then, okay, I passed today.
You know what is crazy, though? Because sometimes it just strikes me like I have literally done this program for 21 years.
Yep.
And I took there was a season where I took a couple of years off just because I was too busy. And, Chuck, of course, was here then, and Don was here. And I figured, it was a little bit like Three's a Crowd, sometimes. So they did fine, obviously they did great for that season. But yeah, it's like, wow, this has been a long time. And so 20 years, you've kind of answered, like almost every question. But occasionally we do get a question where you're like, wow, I have not heard that question.
Yeah.
And even when we get the repeat questions, it's good to know we have new listeners all the time. So they may have never heard the question. Sure, we might have answered it 11 times in the last 11 years, but always new people tuning in. And now with Facebook and YouTube, people watching that way, and the program being archived on Spotify afterwards. It's
You know what's cool is I like to remind people from time to time, when I was at Dallas Seminary, it was called To Every Man an Answer. And my routine is I would leave seminary, and I lived in a suburb called Garland. And this was like back even when you had like tape cassettes, and I would record stuff on the tape cassettes. Boy, has it been that long? This is like just 2000. This isn't too long ago, right? They had DVDs as well. But I would listen on the radio if the timing worked. Right. And I always loved listening to questions and then answers.
Yeah.
I think it's such a great way for people to grow in their spiritual faith. Yeah. And I think that what's happening a little bit today that you see in the world of apologetics is we used to kind of see apologetic answers or Bible-based answers. It was very much of a just package, kind of more of a black and white. People would just give me the answer. But in today's culture, so many of the difficulties that we wrestle with as Christians have been pointed out by maybe your progressive Christians or by new atheists with social media. And so what I feel like we're up against at times is, is this reasoning that we're giving that people have to see us, as we talked about a little bit on the show yesterday, reasoning out loud, thinking through our faith, showing, because you now when you're talking, it's like before I could imagine 20, 30 years ago, when you started this, Brian, you're giving an answer, you're thinking about your crowd, and they're not thinking about as much that's been influenced by social media.
Oh, no.
Now, because we're aware of that, we're having to be knock down this and erect this.
Yeah, I mean, back then it was like there was no such thing as social media. The internet was still, in 2000. I mean,
I think Al Gore had just invented the internet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's nice, by the way, just for the audience, like Pastor Brian doesn't really, utilize his cough button. So when you hear him hacking online, like he's got a little button in here. And after 20 years, he's just.
I know. Well, I thought I was going to just have a little cough, and then it turned into more than one.
Into a fest.
All right. I'll keep my button on the. It's funny because when Cheryl's on here with me, like she will be tomorrow,
she'll reach over.
She reaches over and puts my mute button, not because I'm coughing, but she goes,
"That a girl.
I can hear you breathing. I can hear you sighing." It's like. What? Leave me alone. Get your finger off my
Why do wives
button.
do that to us?
Well, I think she inherited it from her mother because her mom used to always be telling her dad, Chuck, I can hear you breathing. Stop it. Chuck's like, well, okay, if I stop breathing, I'd die.
Okay, so does Cheryl ever do, and then we'll get back on, let's have an ADD moment, but are you ever like out to dinner with somebody well, I guess you're just such not the noisy thinker, so it's hard to imagine you sticking your foot in your mouth and Cheryl kind of giving you a kick under the table. But I get that
No,
quite a
I
bit.
kick Cheryl under
Oh, you can.
I hope she's not listening to this today.
Oh, man, yeah.
Yeah.
So where were we? We were talking about the year 2000 and social media.
Oh,
and the
yeah.
internet.
I was just saying,
Okay.
back then, to respond to what you're saying, Bobby, the internet was still fairly new. People blogged, but there was no such thing as social media. I mean, was Facebook even around in 2000?
I don't think so.
No, I think it was MySpace or something back then,
MySpace.
right? So, this did not exist. So now we're in, because I remember I used to think this, and now I think it like 100 times more. Like, what would it have been like to live in a time where you didn't have to just defend the faith every time you turn around,
Yeah.
Was there ever a time when that was the case where you could just get up and open the Bible and just teach it and not have to say, but, so-and-so said this, but this is really the case here. That would just be kind of nice to do. But that is not the world we live in.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
All right, 888-564-6173 is the number to call us. We're here till 5 p.m. Pacific time today. We'd love to hear from you. Before we get to the calls, today, April 22nd, is Earth Day. So I want to start off by saying, Earth, I'm sorry for everything I've ever done to you and for trampling on. No, I'm joking. How ought Christians, what should be our response to environmentalism? Yes, we ought to take care of the earth, but is environmentalism like has it become its own religion? Has it become...
In some cases, for sure, it has become that. But I think we should just, as Christians, we should say, God, thank you for this amazing home you made for us, this planet that is absolutely unbelievable in beauty and glory and in resources and all of that. I mean, because the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, right? The earth belongs to God, and He gave it to us. So, but, I think sometimes I know in our tribe we have tended to dismiss, these kinds of issues like ecological issues and things like that. Like, oh, it's all going to burn, and we don't care about that. But not all Christians think that way. And here's the thing that really, this is where I got really convicted and impacted. I was listening to this guy preach at our festival in the UK. And he was sharing a story. He was sharing a testimony. He's a young guy. He grows up, he just has this science bent, he just wants to do something. He loves the earth. He loves, forestry and trees and all this. So he goes and he gets his degrees and whatever you get for that sort of stuff. And through a process of time, he gets contacted by the government of Malaysia. And they tell him, basically, we've got this whole forest region that's just dying. We don't know what to do about it. So he goes and he restores their forest over a period of time. He lives there. He works there. He gives them all the ideas. This is what we've got to do. And then, he was telling the story and he just said, and it was so obvious to me that God led me to this. The Lord opened this door for me to go. And I'm thinking, man, that's amazing.
Absolutely.
A mission to save a forest in a country for the benefit and the blessing of the people of the country. It's like, because I think sometimes we don't think these days. So Cheryl, she does the Women Worth Knowing podcast, right? And every one of these podcasts, they're on a roll right now. They're doing a whole thing on women doctors, going back to the very first women doctor in the Western world, Elizabeth Blackwell. And so anyway, but as they're telling these stories, I'm thinking, it's so interesting. Back then, so many people had this idea like, their mission in serving Christ, and even as a missionary, it wasn't simply, I'm going to go take my Bible and take some Bible tracts and I'm going to go, share them with these people. But I am going to equip myself with knowledge and understanding that will benefit the people I'm going to. So I'm going to become a doctor so I can go minister to these people. So she's doing right now Ida Scudder. And Ida Scudder, is this young woman. Her family, her dad's a famous doctor in New York. Her grandfather's a famous doctor in New York. And something happens to him and they decide we're moving to India. The dad heard that there's like almost 1 million people per doctor or hospital in India at the time,
Can you imagine?
And so he just said, okay, we're packing up and we're moving to India. So they did. And, she's a young girl and she's kind of like, oh, God, my parents are crazy. I don't want to go to India. I like the life in New York and all of this stuff. But to make a long story short, she ends up finally going and she becomes this renowned physician in India. And she does all of these amazing things and starts hospitals and does all of this. But it was basically God got a hold of her life and just said, this is what I want you to do. And it just made me think like today, and somebody said this to me the other day, and I do think it's true. Sometimes I think we kind of give the impression to people, sometimes even as preachers, like, now, if you really want to serve the Lord, you got to get involved here at the church, or you got to do something that's specifically connected to this church location, rather than saying, look, you can serve the Lord in all of these arenas. And we need you to serve the Lord in these arenas. We need you to serve the Lord in the realm of medicine and the sciences and the arts and law and, on and on and on. We need people that are called to that, just like we are called to what we're doing.
Yeah, that is so well put. I mean, even studies show that the average committed Christian will only give you 3 slots a week. So you think Sunday morning worship, and then if you got a small group, and then if you plug them into service with 1 spot, and we have to, when we're calendaring in churches, be thinking about all the expectations we're putting on people. And I wonder, in a post-COVID world, what if the most committed people were only giving 2 slots, like Sunday morning, and then you want them in a small group, and then, don't we want to reach the culture? And so I think sometimes what happens is we get people so busy doing the events of our church that we don't have time to be on mission. And so when you think about creation, fall, redemption, restoration, that we're here to restore all things, there's only a certain amount of people that we need to run our weekly ministries to pull that off. But for some reason, it's like we train as if we need everybody to help run the weekly deal. And I'm thinking, why not just release people to be about in the kingdom and getting involved in restoring all things? And the environment is a key place. You'll know this, Brian. I mean, here's where theology can have consequences. So dispensationalism, a view that is taken too rigid, will see that the world is just going to get worse before Christ comes. Now, I can see that, but that does not mean we should slip into not doing anything about it. And I think many people, because they're waiting for Christ to come, they got passive in taking care of the environment. They got passive in getting engaged in the litany of things that you just discussed. And in some ways, this is almost then, here you're a Christian, you get this view of eschatology that causes you to shut down, and then you start to function more like a Gnostic. And a Gnostic would be somebody that would value the immaterial, spiritual, and yet devalue the material. Yeah. And so in Gnosticism, why take care of the environment? Well, I think we end up with Christians whose eschatology causes them to function like a Gnostic. And so this is how ideas have consequences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And a lot of people are going to be mad at you for saying that. But I'm glad you said it and not me. Bobby, I don't agree with that. So send your mean notes to Bobby.
Yes. Well, I actually do probably see the world getting a lot worse, but that doesn't mean
But here's the deal. And I agree with you. I really do agree with you on this because I think, here's what happens. And this comes to social issues as well. This comes to issues of justice, like we're being faced with everywhere around us today. There has been a mentality, and you're right. It's a certain theological position that basically has said it's all going to burn. So that's not our concern.
Right.
That's not our problem. Our mission and job is to just get as many people saved as we can, Now, I agree that our mission is to get as many people saved. God wants people to come into his kingdom. Exactly. I agree with that 100%. But I don't think that that's to the exclusion of these other things. I think it's through many of these other things that salvation will come to people. And here's what and I think I've said this before probably for sure, but look, I am a grandfather now. I'm actually qualified as an old person now. Hard to believe, because in my brain I'm still the same guy, but I'm technically old.
Do they give you the senior discount at Denny's?
Oh, anytime I want it, of course, yeah. I mean, I haven't hit the big 6.5 yet, and that's when it really, kicks in.
Discounts.
But I'm just months away. So, but anyway, this is what I do not know, nor does any other human being on this planet know. I do not know when Jesus is going to return.
Yep.
And it might be in a year, and it might be in 10 years, and it might be in 50 years. I do not know.
Yep.
But what I do know is I have grandchildren that are inheriting this world. And the question is, what kind of a world are we leaving them? Mm-hmm. And if the Lord doesn't snatch us out of here before it all gets horrible, and it's partially getting horrible because Christians withdrew from the culture and said, well, that's not our business. That's not our thing. We don't really have to be concerned about that stuff because we're going to be out of here.
Yep.
I mean, that was basically the mantra, when I first got...
You're hosed, but we're out of here.
Yeah. I mean, when I first got saved, that was it. It's like, I don't think we're going to get married because we're going to be out of here. Mm-hmm. But, finally our passion overwhelmed us and we got married. We're not going to have any kids because I think the Lord's coming. And then, you start having kids. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to do this because I think the Lord's coming. Well, we can believe the Lord's coming, but at the same time also recognize we don't know when that is.
That's right.
So we need to be about the business of the kingdom right now because the kingdom is here now and we can spread it now. And we should.
Mm-hmm.
Good conversation. This is Pastor's Perspective. Brian Broderson and Bobby Conway answering your calls today, 888-564-6173. And we're here till 5 p.m. Pacific time. We would love to hear from you, especially if you disagree with anything these guys just said right now. Because, and I just mean that as you might have just had some line of thinking all these years, and maybe you're hearing this for the first time, and wait a minute, what? I never thought of it that way. So.
Yeah, and let me say this, and I think it's funny that this is completely spontaneous because we didn't. I don't know what you were thinking about when you walked in the studio, but I wasn't really thinking about this. But I do want to say that I used to think that way, and so I have Now, some people would say I've fallen away or I'm backslidden.
You've left the
or
coop.
I've left the faith or whatever. I would just say that I've matured. That's my understanding of it. So.
Yeah, well, and I think that there is an element, there's a danger as we get older. And again, you're quite a bit ahead of me on that. But no,
Yes, I am, son. I am.
Son,
yes.
I am. But I think there's a danger if you just are thinking exactly like you were when you were a Christian for 1 year and regurgitating things the same way. You better hope you were just spot on lucky and arrived at the right conclusions, because the truth is if we're thinking and if we're reading and if we're growing, we're going to look at things differently. We're going to view things differently. The danger is to make sure that we heed the warning of not slipping into heresy in that way. So you get some people who they just so celebrate their thoughts and they'll think their way into progressive Christianity. And that is not where we are at all. But there's some people, they're so rigid on their views and they've never even considered another book. All they've read, it's like they've had the choir preach to them their entire life. And they better hope that they're right, because there's other choirs singing.
Yeah. I just listened to a podcast today, a fascinating interview with Preston Sprinkle and Francis Chan. And I'm telling you, it was like, wow. I mean, I was like, so Francis, and this, he's kind of a case in point, and Preston as well. They both, they were together at a seminary here in the Southern California area, a seminary that's very, very rigid and very, like cut and dry,
Between
black
the
and
eyes.
white. This is it. Anybody who doesn't see it like we see it is somewhere out of touch, with reality and God. And to listen to these guys talk about the journey they've been on and how the Lord has brought them into the lives of people that they formerly would have publicly criticized the tribe or, the group that these people are in. And they've just been rebuked because they're meeting these people that just absolutely love Jesus. And they're like, well, wait, I thought I had this perspective on you that I guess it was completely wrong.
Yep.
But at the time they thought, no.
You just said the key thing, though, and you've said this about racial issues as well.
Yeah.
They were meeting people.
Yes.
When you sit in your fundamentalist camps or you sit in your white camps or in your black camps, when you don't cross over and mingle, and I think that's what's happening. Social media, other things, we're getting to engage.
Yeah.
And we're realizing, wow, maybe we're just judging people and throwing stones at them in our own little community.
Yeah. It's really, really, fascinating stuff.
Is this the one here?
Raw conversation with, Preston. Mm-hmm.
All right, so check that out at prestonsprinkle.com if you want to listen to it. It's
not everybody's going to like it. I'll just give you an advance warning that some people are going to be really offended by it. But I very much, resonated with what Francis had to say.
Yep, it's good to hear those things sometimes and not always want our ears to be tickled.
Yeah.
888-564-6173. Let's go to the phones now. Here is Jerry in California. Welcome to Pastor's Perspective, Jerry.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hi, guys.
Hi there.
Hi, Jerry.
How you guys doing?
Good, thank
We're
you.
doing great.
Right, great. My question was, when Moses encountered the burning bush and was speaking with Yahweh from Mount Sinai, was that God the Father or God the Son?
What do you think, Brian?
Well, I think it was God the Son. I actually do think that, it says in John chapter 1, verse 18, I think it's 18, yeah. It says, no one has ever seen God, but the one and only Son who is in the heart of the Father. He has declared him, or he's revealed him. He's brought him out into the open. I think that that's actually telling us that the divine revelation has always come through the Son. He has been the revelator, if you will. And remember, when Jesus said to the Pharisees, he said, before Abraham was, I am. the name I am was not connected with any incident or moment in Abraham's experience. God never said to Abraham, I am that I am. Who did he say that to? He said that to Moses, and he said it at the burning bush. And so I think when Jesus says, I am, he's basically saying, I'm the one that was in the bush, speaking to Moses.
I would. That's an interesting thought. The way I would see that, if I had to pick a personage, I would see it being the second person. But I would see it being more of, we might not be able to pin down which person, because when Jesus was saying, I and the Father are one, or before Abraham was, I am, I would see that is God's essential nature, and so there's one God, and I'm wondering if we're able to pin down the personage right there, or if Moses is just getting this encounter with the monotheistic God himself, and perhaps all three personages were there in that moment. It was just like, I am, because the Holy Spirit, I think, could say, I'm the self-existent one. The Father could say, I'm the self-existent one. And the Son could say that. But I am very sympathetic to people who would say exactly what you said, drawing on John 8:58, before Abraham was, I am. I'm just wondering if it was more of just God. And that's
okay. And I'm not disagreeing with that or saying that couldn't be the case. And maybe that is the case. But remember, in the case with Moses, it's the angel of Yahweh who's speaking to him. Mm-hmm. So, and
the angel of the Lord.
The angel of the Lord, right. So we've always, I think, understood the angel of the Lord to be a reference to pre-incarnate Jesus. Yeah.
So that's exactly right. I mean, because otherwise you end up with kind of a quadrinity if you don't associate the angel of the Lord as the fourth person of Godhead, and you don't want to do that. I, from that standpoint, see that, and maybe
it's okay if I can be right. I mean, it's fine. Don't worry about it. You don't have to.
Yeah. Well, I guess what it is. Okay. Do you think that the Father could say He's the I am?
Absolutely.
In the Spirit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So maybe it's So is it possible that just because the angel's there? Okay. Let's check this out. And we know that the Holy Spirit and the Father say, what I'm having to do right now is justify myself so it doesn't look like I've flown the coop too. So this is what we're doing. But if we say the Father's omnipresent and the Spirit's omnipresent, and we see that we have the angel kind of, which would be a Christophany moment, that maybe what you see bubbling up is the second person of the Son in that moment, but the Father and the Spirit were still there because it was an encounter with God.
Well, obviously. I mean, because in one sense.
Can I keep my job?
In one sense, you can even be right. I could be wrong. But in one sense, you can't, it's a crazy thing because there is a distinction. It's a real distinction, but in another sense, there is no distinction. Yeah. So that's kind of the complicated thing about it, right? Yeah. But I do think with that John passage, because I've thought about, no one has seen God at any time, ever. No one has seen God. So, okay, what does that mean about all of these theophanies that we have in the Old Testament? Yeah. And so, to me, I think no one has seen God as a reference to the Father. No one has seen the Father. So the Son has been the revealer. Yeah. But it's okay if that's, exactly. In the end, who knows?
So I think, if I could just endear some sympathy from our listeners, we're working out our theology a little bit online here or on the radio. But here's the thing. We've thought about this a lot, but when you talk, you think more. I guess the way I would say it is, if you had to pin me down, I would certainly see it being the second person of the Godhead who's there. But I wonder if there's more because of the name I am. Yeah.
All right, Jerry, thanks for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective. Going to take a quick break and then answer more of your questions. 888-564-6173. Back in a couple of minutes, we'll find out if Dr. Bobby Conway keeps his job. So stay where you are.
Pastor's Perspective continues in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Pastor's Perspective continues with your question to 1-888-564-6173. And now here again is your host, Brian Perez.
We're back once again. 888-564-6173 is that telephone number, and it's good until 5 p.m. Pacific time today, because when we're done with this live program in about 30 minutes, we're going to record the program that will air on Monday. So give us a call, 888-564-6173. In the studio today, Pastor Brian Broderson of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California. Brian, where's Bobby?
Well, you know, I hated to let him go because I like Bobby, but, you know, we just can't have that kind of doctrinal error going out.
Oh, my goodness.
We're kidding. Bobby's here. That was good.
Oh, my goodness. You're so earthy.
It's Earth Day. Of course he's earthy.
It's Earth Day.
888-564-6173. Let's go to Colorado now, talk to Kate, although Kate might be talking about us. I don't know. It says here on the screen, how can she deal with immature adults in a Christ-like way? You're not talking about us, are you?
No.
Okay, just making sure.
I think you guys are crazy fun, and I think it's great to see Christians come out of their shell and be real.
Oh, thank you, Kate.
But I'm having a struggle because the pastors at my church and different people who you look to think they're mature are so immature. And when I go to church, I'm not being fed, but I live in a small town, and I'd rather listen to Ray Bentley and Brian and go through that whole thing, and I'd rather listen to that than go to church because I'm not being fed at church.
Now, when you say they're immature, what do you mean?
Well, one pastor lied from the pulpit.
Oh, my.
About me.
Oh, gosh.
And I confronted him, and there are about 10 things that I talked to him about. He has not addressed any of them. And I dropped out of church for a while. Then I went back, and now he comes up and gives me a hug because it's like, I knew you'd come back. No.
But has there been an apology or anything from him, or?
No, not at all.
So he's just saying you knew you would come back because that's such a great church and he's such a great pastor that you knew you were wrong.
I was
maybe.
wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. That's.
Now, Kate, do you have any other options for church?
Honestly, I don't want any other options because I love listening to David Rolfe, or is it Dave Rolfe?
Dave Rolfe, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay,
Yeah,
so you're thinking
you're Ray Bentley. Then I listen to you.
Okay, so you're thinking of the Sunday lineup on kwve, right? Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
I love it
Yeah.
because I'm being fed.
Yeah, sure. Well, and you know, being fed is wonderful, and we're very happy to hear that that's happening. But you know, fellowship is an important part too. Mm-hmm. But maybe it's just maybe that's just not the right place for the fellowship, or maybe there's something during the week, a community group or something that you can plug in to get connected and get the fellowship from.
Well, I get fellowship because I belong to a prayer group.
Oh, good.
And do different things.
Well, that's good.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated. I'd rather stay home than go to that church. It's a waste of my time.
Well, you know, I mean, I don't think you should go to a church out of obligation.
Well, the reason I'm going there is because I heard a pastor on K-Wave saying we're not to forsake the assembling of ourselves together.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So then I thought, well, Lord, if you want me to go back to church, I can humble myself and go back. So I did go back. He never gave me a hug prior to our incident. And now that I've been back 2 weeks, both times he comes up and hugs me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm just like, ugh.
Well, can you? Here's what this is just my suggestion. You can, do with it what you pray about it and see what you think. But Before you make a final decision, I would ask to talk to him and say, I would like to speak to you as a pastor, and here I'm part of your church, and these things happened, and I want to know if do you acknowledge those things, or are you just kind of sweeping it under the carpet and you're just going to ignore it, or maybe just get a feel. And I think the way he responds to you will tell you pretty clearly whether or not you ought to be there, or whether you're welcome there. And, maybe he'll say, gosh, I'm sorry. And I have been immature, and that would be really great if he did do that. But if he doesn't do that, then, of course, you need to consider other options. And I think if you have a regular prayer meeting and you have Christians that you're, in community with, then maybe the Sunday thing is just going to be for you what you're getting through listening to us.
Because the Bible doesn't say, do not forsake the assembling of yourselves together on Sunday morning. So
It doesn't say that.
Yeah. So,
Right.
But Kate, didn't you say that you did talk to the pastor?
Pardon me?
Didn't you say that you did speak to him at some point?
I spoke to him twice,
Okay.
Since
and he's never acknowledged anything.
okay, do you feel like you got it in you to go back one more time and say,
Oh, sure. I'll
Okay.
do whatever the Lord wants me to do.
yeah, well, try to see him again, and then just tell him how you feel, and then see how he responds, and I think you'll know where to go from there.
Yeah, I would say too, Kate, while some people, you would think it would be obvious, like how to bring up, hey, let's just get rid of the elephant in the room. Sometimes people don't know how to get rid of the elephant. And I don't know, on one side, if he's kind of brought you up from the pulpit, it doesn't sound like a fearful avoidant, but sometimes you have people that publicly, they can come across more bold, but then one-on-one, they're fearful avoidants. And so that can create a real false dichotomy for you. So think about that. There are people that when there's a crowd out there, they can be real bold, but if they have to deal with somebody one-on-one, then they become fearful avoidants. You see this all the time, by the way, on social media. You get these people who are very aggressive on social media platforms, but then if they see you in the public, they're fearful avoidants. And I would just say, hey, can we just, this is the elephant that at least I see, get that on the table, and then see if he acknowledges it. But here's the thing, if somebody is a fearful avoidant, I think just be compassionate toward that, because sometimes I think we're getting resentful and we're getting frustrated at people because they're not acknowledging the elephant. And what we do is we interpret the elephant the way that we interpret the elephant. So if I was in this situation, I would address it. And when somebody doesn't do that, so for example, texting can be a really weird thing. Like, do you ever notice like the kind of responses we get with texts? Sometimes some people are over the top emoji. They give you a lot. Sometimes people just don't even text back. Sometimes people just give you like a one-liner. Well, we often expect people to text us the way that we text. And we have to just realize that when it comes to this thing called confrontation, it looks different. People have different personality types. And what that can do is that could really free us a lot to not be worn out by, oh my goodness, why didn't this person address this? Or what? It allows us to give people the benefit of the doubt. And then we could just say, hey, I know some people don't like dealing with conflict. For me, I just want to make sure we're good. And this was awkward for me that this was addressed in the pulpit. Can we, I just want to see where you are on that. And then if you're not satisfied with his answer, then you have a choice to make.
Yeah, and I think, again, we do have to be careful, because it's easy to get resentful. It's easy to, you can get offended, and then you can harbor that, and then that's not going to be healthy for you. So I think it's great, Kate, that you're saying, I'm going to do whatever the Lord, tells me to do. And then two, part of that is just some of it you got to just let go of and just say, okay, well, this is, their immaturity. I'm not going to let it control my life by holding on to the resentment over it or things like that. So.
Kate, thank you for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective, and thank you for listening to our flagship station, K-Wave 107.9 from Colorado. Not because K-Wave is in Colorado, but actually K-Wave is everywhere. You can listen to it online at kwve.com, or you can download the streaming app and take us with you wherever you go so that you can listen 24/7 to some great worship and word. Next, we're going to go to California. Regina wants to know if we should cancel the governor. Hi, Regina. Welcome to the program.
Hi. I just wanted to get your thoughts on a pastor who encourages his entire congregation to sign up and cancel Mr. Newsom.
By cancel, you mean like to recall, to do the...
Yeah. Is that what Christians should be doing? And I'll hang up and listen to the answer on the radio.
Okay.
Thank you.
Brian?
Well,
Have fun with that, Brian. Just wanted to-
Why did you move out of California, you bum? No, I got to answer this thing. Well, look, I can just give my opinion on it. I'm not going to, pastors are accountable to the Lord, and so they need to be doing what, God leads them to do. I do not personally feel led by the Lord to do that. I might have a political view on something, and I might, think that this should be done this way, but I do not feel at all led to or free to get up and do things in that fashion in regard to political issues. To me, that is kind of muddying the waters. And I just think it's, if the governor gets recalled, he gets recalled. There's petitions. You can. I also feel like people need to think for themselves a little bit, and I don't want to be telling people what to think. I'll tell them what to think in regard to what the Bible says. I'll give them clarity and teach them what I know. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, I just think that this is. Personally, this is something that I don't believe that I'm certainly not called to engage in this stuff myself. I don't feel any prompting by the Spirit. As a matter of fact, I feel more the opposite, like don't go down that road. I'm not even really tempted to go down the road, but, occasionally, I have my frustrations with, the governor and the president and the whoever. We all have those moments. But I like saying muddying the waters. I think, the church has to be a place where the trumpet needs to make a certain sound. And the sound should be the sound of the gospel. And if you want to get political opinions, there's plenty of places you can get all of those. You can go, there's tons of online people that'll give you that. And you can go to your news station and you got your left view and you got your right view. When people come to church, I'm not here as a political pundit. I'm here I want to apply the scripture to the current cultural moment, obviously, but I think on these things, I don't see it as a wise move.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I do think that people have absolutely the right and the freedom to sign a recall on their own, and I could imagine a lot of Christians would feel that that's the right thing to do. When I read the scriptures, what I would see is when I think of Paul living in a time with Nero, and I look at his letters, and I think of how atrocious it must have been.
Wait, you're saying Nero was worse than Newsom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, quite a bit so. Okay. And what I want people to understand is Nero is a lot. Nero literally, he was blamed for basically lighting up Christians on fire, and the city of Rome was lit up with them. And then he blames the Christians for burning down Rome, but it is believed that he's the one that set these Christians on fire, dipping them in tar and using them as torches. And you would think, that is just crazy. It's overwhelming. And I would say the sexuality was just running rampant, the promiscuity in Rome, the paganism, the polytheistic beliefs, the idolatry. I mean, it was horrific. And so you can imagine if that was God's burden for us to overthrow government, because let's just apply that, okay? Newsom, what threshold did he cross when he needed to be publicly chastised from church pulpits to be kicked out? Okay, then which mayors need this? And which city council people need this? And which other mayors need it? And which senators need this? And which governors? And then before you know it, the enemy, while we might be doing a good thing in cleaning up our governmental structure, I wouldn't say that might not be the case. But we've got sidetracked from the gospel. And in the process of doing that, those that might be pro some of these people because they don't know the gospel yet are turned off in the process. And so I would just feel like if I saw Paul calling for an overthrow of Nero, but instead it's more like submit to the governors. It's like the absolute opposite. Now, people can hear me saying, oh, well, you just sound really passive here. I'm not trying to sound passive. I'm saying, hey, we have the right to vote and we have the right to encounter things. But having the right to do this doesn't mean I change the central message. And the thing is people that are so into like the Zionism kind of an approach, they wouldn't see it. I think that they're just so steeped in this that it runs so much together that they don't even see that what's happening here.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, hey, if you want to sign the petition, that's already passed. But if you're going to vote to recall the governor, great, vote to recall the governor. If that's, but I'm not going to get up in the pulpit and tell my congregation, this is what you need to go do.
Yeah.
That's not my job. That's not my calling.
Regina, thanks for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective, 888-564-6173. It's Thursday, so we're here till 5 p.m. Pacific time today. We'd love to hear from you at 888-564-6173. And tonight at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, starting at 7 o'clock, Pastor Brian Broderson, Dr. Bobby Conway, and I are going to be at John Huang's Open Bible Study. It is open to the 18 to 30-year-old age group, although tonight John says that the high schoolers can come out, so it's open to anyone who's 13 to 30, I guess you could say. You can find out more at open.cccm.com. We're going to do this kind of a thing, answer your questions, those of you who show up, and you don't even have to call us. We'll just walk right up to you and stick a microphone in your face, and then you can ask your question that way.
One thing I did want to mention, we talked at the beginning of the program about restoring all things. So I could see somebody listening going, okay, now wait a second. You're talking about reclaiming culture, but I really see that you can, I think it's fine if pastors, before voting comes and they talk about the issues we face. You teach on abortion, you teach on environmentalism, you teach on racial issues, and then you could say something like, based on what the Bible says, go choose the candidate that fits more in line with the scriptures. And so you're doing that. But in the same way you talked about these medical things, and Cheryl's doing this teaching, you're not going to get up and just start becoming a medical clinic on Sunday morning. So you do encourage people to get out there and make a difference and to vote right and to do this. But I think what happens in some churches, it becomes that so myopic on that government piece. Yeah, and I think, too, you have to recognize that you're going to have, so let's just say hypothetically, well, it's not hypothetical. I mean, it's a reality. People show up at church. They've never been to church before. They're looking to find out, what is this church thing about? What is this gospel, Jesus, whatever? And they sit down, and then you get up and you go on a rant about the government. To me, you are forsaking your primary duty, and you're off on a rabbit trail that is probably going to make that person say, okay, well, I know that this isn't what I'm looking for. I know that I thought there was something different here. I thought that maybe I was going to find God, but no, I found get out and, recall the governor. I just think that happens, and I think it's a shame. It's a hard culture to get out of, too, because it'd be easy to preach to that choir, and then the moment you start backing off that pedal, the people are going to be like, hey, what's going on here? We need to be about this. And so that's you create that kind of a machine. That's a real tough place to get out of. You never have to get out of preaching the gospel, but you have to think through some of this.
Absolutely. 888-564-6173. Martha in California, you're on with Brian Broderson and Bobby Conway. Hello.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. So my question is, like when somebody asks for prayer, and if the person says, "Are you a Christian?" and then they say, like, how can, like, I've heard them say, like, people ask for prayer and they're not even Christians. And that's kind of weird to me.
Okay, so you're a Christian. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so people are asking you for prayer and you're asking them, are you a Christian?
No, the pastor.
Oh, okay.
Like before he prays for a person, he asks, like, are you Christian? Or is the person, let's say a mom asks for prayer for her son that he's in jail. And he'll be like, is he Christian? Has he accepted Jesus as his Lord and Savior? And if they say no, I think they refuse to say to pray for him. So I don't know if that's right, or Jesus is, or this thing is like an exclusive only for Christian people that have accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior.
Wow.
Or should we just pray for everybody? I believe that we should just pray for everybody, right? Because it's not about what we do; it's about what Jesus did on the cross.
Yep.
That's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, Martha. And I think Bobby agrees and Brian agrees. Yeah, I mean, if somebody comes and asks me for prayer, let's just say, like your example, my son is in prison. Would you pray for him? Of course I'm going to pray for him. And, okay, I might say, well, is he a believer? And maybe they say, yes, but, he got into some trouble or he came to faith in jail. Okay, well, let's pray this way. But if they say, no, he's not a believer, then I'm going to pray, okay, well, he's not a believer. Let's pray that he comes to know Jesus. So, yeah, I mean, I hope there's no pastors out there refusing to pray for people if they're not Christians. But, you never know.
Do you know anybody like that, Bobby?
Fortunately, no.
Good. All right. Martha, thanks for calling us today on Pastor's Perspective. Hope that answers your question. Let's take this one here really quick. Jacob in California, what did you want to know?
Hi, yeah. So recently, the vaccine and the blood clots going on, and just a couple months ago, you guys had Lou Wang on, and I want to know how you guys feel about that now. I mean, we had death, and then, how do you guys feel about that?
Okay, well, we had, I think, 7 people that had the blood clot, and we had 7 million people vaccinated with the Johnson & Johnson. I was one of those people. And
Wait, one of the 7 or one of the 7 million?
One of the 7 million.
Okay, just making sure.
Yes. So just like anything else, I mean, some people are going to react. You can react to anything. You can react to a Novocaine injection. You can react to a penicillin shot. You can react. That doesn't mean that it's bad or that you shouldn't do it. And I think we're literally looking at 1 in a million here. And I think Johnson & Johnson people are on top of it. They're doing the research to see, why did this happen? It might have not really had anything to do with the vaccine at all. So I think to suddenly say, oh, well, that proves it right there. You shouldn't get the vaccine. I don't feel that way.
What do you think, Bobby? Any thoughts?
What do I think or what do I feel? Or what are
Either
my
one.
thoughts?
Either one. What do your thoughts feel? Can you feel your thoughts?
I think that my thoughts influence how I feel, and I feel good about the thought that Brian just thunk out.
You think, therefore you are.
I think, therefore I am.
All right.
I feel, therefore I am as well.
Jacob, thanks for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective. The music's going to start any second now, so I'm not going to take another call until we come back. So stay on the line. If you're on the line right now, stay on hold. We'll get to you as soon as we can. 888-564-6173 is the number to call. We're going to keep the phone lines open until 5 p.m. Pacific time, and we would love to talk to you. So call us, 888-564-6173, and join us tonight if you're between the ages of 13 and 30. Bobby Conway, Brian Broderson, John Huang, and I are going to be at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa for the Open Bible Study. Tonight is an open forum, kind of like Pastor's Perspective, but live on stage, you could say, and you'll be able to ask your questions there of Bobby and Brian and John, and we'd love to see you, 13 to 30-year-old. Get more information, directions, etc. at open.cccm.com. Starts at 7 p.m. Pacific time. All right, for Brian and Bobby, I'm Brian Perez. Have a good evening. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Pastor's Perspective. We trust you've been blessed and had your question answered. Join us Monday through Friday and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/pastorsperspective. The preceding was sponsored by Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, California.